Gods and Prophets 54. Jeffrey Dahmer, TV's sweetheart cannibal killer. I'm your host, Talon Truth, with
Mark Santana.
And today we're going to be covering the obsession with mental wealth and how it relates to Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, who is on every single algorithm that the system wants you to pay attention to. They're harvesting the fear from this man here.
And literally, essentially overnight.
It seems like he popped out of absolutely nowhere, and suddenly he was headlining on, what is it, Netflix, documentaries that are popping out of nowhere. You know, even the tangential success of the guy who ended up gigging him in prison. So who is Jeffrey Dahmer? Just to give you a quick rundown in case you've never heard this name again. Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer who was convicted of murdering 17 people between June 18th, 1978 and July 1991. So what do you know about Jeffrey Dahmer before I go into literally anything about this guy?
I know that it was a long period of time between all 17 of his murders, and 17 doesn't seem like a lot when you compare him to people like Ted Bundy, but he kind of upped the ante a bit. So instead of burying these people, he would dismember them and keep parts of them in his apartment, where he would then have sex with them and lay with them, and turns out he started to eat them as well. That's
well, really, maybe it just sounds to me like he was lonely and just wanted to chew the fat. That's all. Doesn't sound like a big deal.
Literally. He should have picked victims with a higher fat content. Everyone I saw was
skinny bathhouse twink. Yeah, no. It was absolutely wonderful to watch. I don't know if have you watched the Jeffrey Dahmer on Netflix? The thing that they're pitching right now?
I watched the first 2 episodes, but then realized, very quickly that it was more of a story form. It was an actual show, not a documentary. And I like the documentaries better because I like seeing live footage of the actual person, not people playing characters of him.
Well, it's... And also how they're taking liberties in the Netflix series where some people who weren't even romantically involved were pushed to the forefront.
What do you mean by that exactly? It's people who weren't romantically involved.
For example, the blind guy didn't fuck with him. But for the Netflix show, the blind guy fucked with him.
Ah, okay. Well, they're, of course, going to add stuff for drama. But what's unfortunate is people won't do their research outside of that. And they'll just think that it's, oh, this is exactly how it happened. Of course, it's on Netflix. It's a documentary style show. Why would they lie or try to add drama? Because people are stupid.
Well, I mean, you say that people are stupid in a net statement, but it's what the messaging that they're pitching. It's the story. It's what they're wrapping. It's the illusion that they're putting in front of people to harvest the energy to begin with. You're saying that they're dumb for falling into the trap, but it's the trap that's being planted in front of us every single place that we look.
So I agree with that. Did you watch the entire show, the Netflix special?
Fuck no, I got extremely... It didn't catch me. There was way too much man titty for me.
Okay, a lot of some queer stuff in there. Well, it is about, do you know if it still has the LGBTQ tag on Netflix?
I wouldn't know. I always found it kind of curious because Jeffrey Dahmer didn't really strike me as a man who was really interested into other men.
I mean, that literally was his MO. I could see by just looking at him or seeing him in an interview and knowing nothing about his victims. But, oh, yes, he would go to the gay clubs and bars and pick up young men there. And when you have a show like this that's on Netflix, or any sort of show that, represents a certain type of community, they put an LGBTQ tag on it. so you can go into their little.
Well, is it
subgenres
inclusiveness
and
that's
look
being
stuff up.
added for the murder? But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he didn't prey upon the people that he was able to. Like, if you are a hunter, you're a shark, and you go into a pond and you can't eat any of the prey because it's too fast, you'll go to a slower, fatter pond in order to keep feasting. For him, he had none of the intimacy with, he had no game, he had no sex, right? So what did he do? He went to people who were sex hungry, who would overlook him because he fell into certain categories. So he was preying on just ignorance, really. On the warning signs.
That's a really smart way to do it.
The only way that he found love was
smart.
through his father. He didn't find any love from his mother. His mother was choked out on what? Some sort of postpartum stress disorder?
I'm assuming
that's where he ended up
and
going. That's
probably
not where he
a whole lot of
started.
skills. I don't know much about his parents. I wouldn't take the show, the way they represent his parents in the show,
The only rejection,
seriously, because it is a show.
He took the rejection, and that was what motivated him for killing. But then again, this is the only time we ever saw him know how to relate, was between guys because of his father. He had no, he had a mental problem, so his relation.
Then, remember, he tried to talk to his father about, he was like, I have these, remember, he was trying to come out to his dad about sex. Remember, his grandmother would say, why don't you find a nice girl? Why don't you go out on dates?
Yeah, but that's Netflix casting.
But even if you read the documentation from his, well, not really from
that's
his mom,
where he fell in love with the idea of the power dynamic over men.
I think
he never loved a man.
No, maybe not loved them, but I think he was definitely sexually attracted to men.
He was sexually attracted to dead bodies.
Yes, but also attracted to men. But you have to remember the time that he was in. Like, gays were not accepted then.
Well, the time that he was in was a whole bunch of just mental hospitals being shut down, which should have locked him away from life.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
Or medically
the police
euthanized
officers
him.
not giving them the victims back to him, like that 14-year-old boy that the cops.
There's no evidence that he was 14 after Jeffrey Dahmer was done with him.
Shut the hell up. But no, he was definitely gay, but I think he lacked social skills.
He was gay by his environment, not by birth.
Babe, he was fucked from birth because of all the pills his mom took. He was
and a hernia surgery.
Right, exactly.
So he only learned that pain was pleasure.
I believe that he was definitely gay, plus being socially awkward, probably autistic, right? And not having the social skills to learn how to interact with people. The stuff that he was into, nobody else was into. Like, he wanted to chop up dead animals.
Who doesn't want to work for a Chinese restaurant from a young age? You've got to know how to skin the cat as well as peel the bones.
So I think the constant rejection, obviously, and then not fucking. I mean, we saw what happened to my sister's dog this morning. Not fucking, so he fucking attacked somebody. I mean, if you were not getting any pussy, how would you feel?
I'll revisit the subject.
You can ask me that.
Mark,
I literally live that all the time.
If you weren't,
what do you want to know?
If you weren't getting any pussy and it's just walking around you, just oozing out, just all around you, how would you feel? Would you not feel some sort of rage?
You know how Talon always, of course, but Talon likes to harass me all the time. That says I'm always on edge and I'm always twitchy.
But you know what? Talon's the same fucking way though. He's getting a lot better. This motherfucker's always edgy. You can't say shit to him without him going, "What? Do I have to do everything for you?"
This is very true.
That's all about shade over here from this mama llama.
I know, but
way too much fuck shade. Introduce yourself if you're gonna spit some shade.
I'm Yogi Bear, the witch of the house.
Yes, you can rhyme that with a B, just as easy.
The witch and the bitch of the house.
Is Talon's constant telling me how I'm always on edge or like twitchy, and you just gotta calm down. You gotta relax. But try to give him some sort of directive or ask him a question when he's paying attention to just one thing.
Exactly.
Just one thing, and there's a meltdown. Meanwhile, I literally have 8 things on my mind all the time. And I think I do pretty good.
The fact that you have 8 things on your mind all the time means you're not living in the moment.
Here we go.
Now that I will agree with him on that. Yes, but come on now.
You can't live in the moment with 3 small children.
Yes,
you can, in fact, live in the moment with 3 small children. The fact you're anticipating your children to do anything is part of the problem. You're trying to control them in your head.
Hey, Mark, fuck them kids, okay?
Fuck them kids. You got 3 of them coming up on 4. You can afford a loss.
I really hope and pray that you have triplets. I really hope so.
Yeah, it's way too late, brother. I already got my news, and in a few more weeks, we'll get a confirmation that it will be a king.
A queen?
A king.
Oh, no, that's going to be a
warlock.
It's going to be a girl.
It's gonna be a girl.
The amount of energy that you guys both are putting out in the air trying to get your way, and the fact that I just love this, I will eat all of it. Fate will decide at the end of the day.
It's already decided.
Yes, it's growing a hard, huge peen to fuck over your expectations.
Nope, a nice
100% of the time. A puffy peach.
Having a girl would be a good thing, though.
There ain't nothing in the world I want to think of less as having a baby daughter and then having to deal with the first boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Of all the situations that we could be talking about right now. You know what? I would rather deal with date Jeffrey Dahmer because I know he isn't gonna fuck with her than to give her to literally anybody else.
Aww.
You know, get a mentally abused, beaten up white incel that you could just fuck around with. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah. No. It's the popular flavor these days. It's like fucking vanilla.
Bring them around Cooper. I got a son who comes from good stock, and the dude's hung like a damn horse.
Oh my God.
In the future, let's see.
I know in the future that your kid's gonna do some sort of porn, and we're gonna be looking at him and OnlyFans, and all I'm gonna do is turn over and lightly pat you on the shoulder and say, thank you for all you've done. He doesn't need a prosthetic peen to work in this industry.
I love it. Thank you for your insight, and I appreciate the good vibes sending to my.
It's the high vibrations. Swole is the goal. Size is the prize. Speaking of, so I just don't get this Dahmer, man. I don't get the obsession with him. He's not interesting. He's like that. He's that quiet kid who sits in the corner you know is going to snap one day. And this is the one story where he snaps so we get to watch intimately because he confesses to everything. 17 crimes. And this guy goes, yes, that's right. I did all of it. They don't hear you.
With Jeffrey Dahmer, I think what makes him so... What makes Jeffrey Dahmer so fascinating is the fact that he cannibalized his victims. If this had been any other run-of-the-mill John Wayne Gacy or Ted Bundy, he wouldn't be talked about as much. He only had 17 victims, and most of them were gay men. He would not have been talked about that much. But it's the fact that he cannibalized his victims, and ate them, and slept bodies in his bed. Gross.
So what you're saying is he was ahead of the curve and he already knew how to make a fleshlight.
Literally a human fleshlight. Yes.
Well, it beats cracking up a cold one all the time.
You gotta hurry before they clam up. You know what I mean?
That's sick.
Sick but delicious.
Oh my gosh.
What makes me laugh and slightly giggle at this, and not in a serious way though, are these families that are now coming out all offended that, you know, certain people in their family who were killed by Dahmer are now being represented in this show. And they're all upset, but they're not upset at the actual, you know, tens of documentaries that come out showing, you know, live footage or talking about these victims. Only when it's being publicized on, you know, Netflix is it then a problem because they want some of that Netflix money. You know?
$50 million from one of them.
I think it could be that. I think it could be that, but then also too just bringing it up. You know what I mean? Like it's hard listening to something like that, knowing that you're, you know, I only know this because I lost a brother. I mean, it's hard listening to that, and then it's all over the news and shit like that, and you feel like you've grieved, and then it comes back, and then I'm sure people are asking questions and shit like that. Like, I mean, nobody wants to relive that shit.
Well, there's no greater villain than the victim. No greater villain, because what are you supposed to do? We teach how to hate those who survive.
Explain? What?
Yeah, we hate victims. 100%. It's a common theme in the system is to hate the victim and to sympathize with the villain. If you ever watch, for example, just look at the criminal prosecution of the Milwaukee driver who ran over a whole bunch of Christmas celebrators. He's doing his own representation. He's like, it was the SUV's fault, and it was the news for whipping me up into a batch of wanting to drive down Christmas Avenue. He's being sympathetic.
Oh, wow. That was what happened after Kyle Rittenhouse. Is that the gentleman you're talking about?
The Milwaukee, yeah. But what I'm saying is the victims are demonized. The Boston bomber victims are demonized. It's easier for people to just be like, well, fuck yeah. We gotta sell this media. We've got to sell this vibration. We've got to sell this capability of keeping people low. And that's all I see that Jeffrey Dahmer is. Jeffrey Dahmer is there so that you hate thy neighbor. It's so that you look at your neighbor, the quiet one, who doesn't really involve himself in your particular, whatever your vibration is. If you're talking about football, he's not talking about football. He's talking about cracking open a dead animal to carve into it, because that's his hobby. He had nobody to relate to pre-internet. Imagine Jeffrey Dahmer in the internet time frame where he has a whole bunch of sycophants going around clapping their hands saying, yes, queen, yes, I love the way that you fondle those animals. Let's do it together, and let's get a golden retriever and crack it open together after fucking it. This is just the vibration that they want. They want to harness that energy of that mistrust and that hatred, because then they can drive people to just look at, well, maybe they don't want to extend a barbecue invitation to the quiet guy. Then they're hyper focusing on how abnormal he was being quiet. And then they're really expressing how he just did not care about other human beings. It's fucking weird. Right? Is it just me? Like, I'm seeing this on everything.
No, it's not just you. It definitely, it's pretty. It makes me wonder if it's kind of put out there to, like you were saying, make people nervous about their neighbors. If you see something, say something, and now they're calling the cops on everything and everybody.
Whistleblowers and snitches. America hates whistleblowers. I mean, look at Obama's Whistleblower Act and how it was actually used with Edward Snowden. Did Snowden look like he was a bad guy when he was whistleblowing that our privacy and information's always being exploited? But he was a victim, right? How was he blamed? How is he the villain? It's the same story. It's how they cast you.
Well, they definitely cast Edward Snowden as a villain. How dare he give away these government secrets? How dare he? I don't see them casting Jeffrey Dahmer as a victim. I mean, he definitely was a really evil dude.
Was he not a victim, though? I mean, think about it. Like Yogi was saying earlier, he was gay. He had no play. There was nothing going on. And he had no friends that were really, I mean, it says that they were close friends.
He's totally not a fucking victim.
Yeah, he is.
No, he isn't.
He was emotionally abused by his mother.
Okay, in that sense, yes, I do kind of get that, but that
you don't think long-term psychological abuse by someone who's close and should love you didn't have an impact on his interpersonal relationships?
Yes, but I will say this. It's not like the bitch was beating his ass.
Beating his ass would have been a physical thing he could have gotten behind.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wish I was actually there when he was a fly on the wall to see how she was.
You would have been safe.
Well, yeah. I mean,
as the fly on the wall. Yeah,
no, just having a pair of titties, it didn't matter. Have a nice pair, a nice rack.
Knowing me, knowing me,
his bed,
I probably would have
just
befriended him.
Ass up in the air
as a kid.
Well, what would you have done? See, you like picking things apart, right?
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, I'm more of a digital guy. I like picking apart remotes.
Yeah, I don't think they had those back. I'm just kidding.
1990s?
No, he was born in the 70s. No, he's what? His victims were what? The 80s, 70s, 80s,
90s.
No, he was born in 1960.
No, his victims were like late 70s, 70s, 80s. Look it up. It was not recent.
70s, 80s.
Between
between
90. Okay, 1991 was the latest.
So 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So he was an 80s and 90s kid killer.
What kind of games were out there?
Super Mario Brothers, Contra. The kind of games he would have liked would have been Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Pitfall?
I'd like to know if he was actually into horror movies.
Well, he would play the horror movies for victims.
But that was his fantasy. He was role-playing at that time. Who was he acting out
That
as?
was his fucking... What do you mean role-playing? That was who he was.
But that's what I'm saying. That was the role he was playing in this system.
Mm-hmm.
So he took that role, and that was when he took the confidence. He was the villain. He was causing pain. He was the one in power.
After they were drugged, yes, he took his mask off and showed who he was.
So he needed them compliant, because I know that when he was going to
Due to his rejection.
bathhouses, but he didn't have rejection.
Babe, literally, remember his first interaction when he was looking at the guy jogging. He kept looking at him, kept eyeing him, invited him over for beer.
That was that guy, but we're talking about the later victims. That was his first victim.
Right, so rejection from his mom, rejection from...
But when the homosexual men loved him, and he was getting ass.
Right. By then, he had already gotten into the fucking dead corpses and...
So he's living in his past, and he was playing a role at that point that he slipped in to be comfortable, because that was his power base. He was powerful there. Nobody could touch him. He had all the control. People were marionettes. They were moldable. He could say things, and they wouldn't reject him.
I got lost. Okay, bye.
And in that fantasy, he ended up consuming himself, becoming a sweetheart and a cannibal. Wonder what the first person he ate was. Because when you eat people, historically, cannibals do that to gain a sense of power.
Well, Jeffrey Dahmer self-admitted that the reason he would eat people is to feel close to them and to keep a part of them with him.
Well, that's true. He would
do with that. Quite literally.
Karmic cost of consuming human flesh is prions disease. It's where you get kuro. If you ever notice somebody has holes in their tongue, that's a sign that you probably shouldn't go to any of their barbecues or expect any pulled pork sandwiches.
I've never seen a dude with holes in their tongue, but now I'm going to keep that in mind at the next barbecue that I go to.
Take a closer look at Hillary Clinton's mouth.
No. There's no way.
So I was watching a movie recently. Society.
Yeah.
You ever watch Society? Fucking phenomenal film. It's about a rich cult that uses sex magic in order to indoctrinate people into their lifestyle, where the daughter of the rich family was passed around by the local influencers. Positions of power being kept on top. I mean, it's a combination of cocktail of drugs, mysticism, and some really dark flesh molding, flesh suit. Phenomenal imagery. If you like horror movies, Society.
Okay, I'll check that out. Is it on a streaming service? Can I watch that back to back with Dahmer?
No, you could watch it on Shudder, which I feel is fucking awesome, really. When it comes to watching just flicks that are horror movies, they've got Metropolis, they've got
a free streaming service.
No, go fuck yourself. Go slap some dosh down and stop being a little low. I need everything free. Live in abundance.
I was asking if it was free, because if it's free, I'm not going to use it because I don't watch TV like poor people.
Oh, you don't watch TV like poor people. Do you also elevate your pinky when you drink a cold beverage? Making sure that you don't get your fucking spice finger? No way. You don't have that much class.
I have way more class than you do, buddy.
How do you measure it? By the shortness of your attitude?
By the shortness of my pubes. The shorter the pubes, the higher the class. You, sir, have no class.
I take no offense to this. At no point does looking like a prepubescent teenager the style for me. Look, if you want to be the skinhead, notice he drank, but he didn't smoke. Jeffrey Dahmer, who fucking dropped the liquor, might have been a better guy. We may never know. He was always low vibrational all the fucking time. Every single time this motherfucker would go and grab a beer since age 14, which is one of the wild things that I noticed about what they were posting, is that where the fuck did he get the beer, right? I thought beer was...
It was so much... My uncle had a chest hair at 15, and he would literally walk down to the liquor store with a button-up shirt that only was, it was only halfway buttoned, showing off his, I guess, his chest hair. And they sold him beer all the time. It wasn't as, a regulated or strict back in the 70s and 80s as it is today.
I mean,
so
there you go. Wonder if he could. Wonder if his dad was giving him beer to calm him down. You know, he seems like a pretty wild kid, just running around, dissecting animals, trying to relate. Ended up somehow, he somehow got into Satanism as well.
Now, where did you find this information?
Let's see. Jeff's father, Lionel Dahmer, PhD, mailed a personal letter to the judge that read, I have tremendous reservations regarding Jeff's chances when he hits the streets. Request not be told he'd been written because he did not want to realize he's urging more psychotherapy and touching imprecation. I sincerely hope that you may intervene in some way to help my son, who I love very much and who I want a better life. This may be our last chance. I remember watching that in the news, but it was a bone zone. He had a... Jeffrey Dahmer designed to create a shrine of his victims, which he would build for the devil. And he called it his bone zone. There's a lot of photos and photographs that you would have to look at to see imagery that, like, the human body bent backwards where the spine would be broken and the head would be under the body near where the feet are bent. I'm not sure I want to...
None of that bothers me. I'll look at those photos while eating a plate of baked ziti. Doesn't bother me at all.
I had 3 of them by that time that I wanted to keep, so when they were dried, I glued the teeth in to make sure they were fastened. I separated the joints, the arm joints, the leg joints, and had to do 2 boilings. I think I used 4 boxes of soil X for each one. Put it in the upper portion of the body and boiled that for about 2 hours, and then the lower portion for another 2 hours. I love the chemistry that this guy puts in, the dedication. The soil X removes all the flesh, turned into a jelly-like substance that it just rinses off. Then I laid the clean bones in a light bleach solution, left there for a day, and spread out on either newspaper or cloth to let them dry for about a week in the bedroom by Jeffrey Dahmer. I gotta tell you, it kind of reminds me of What happened to Mufasa in The Lion King when he wanted to get the skull? Remember how Scar had that skull when he was singing, I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was Mufasa's skull.
I've seen some Lion King lore about that and how he's singing with the skull. But I don't think he went through all the science that you did because, you know, he was a lion.
Yes, hyenas don't eat lions, typically, and no other animal in the savannah that they showed in The Lion King do, except other lions. So that would mean that in that scene, that after Scar had killed and tenderized, he ate Mufasa. So, I wonder if Jeffrey Dahmer watched The Lion King, or if that was after he was in prison.
You know what hyenas also don't do?
Talk?
They also don't sing songs and make jokes and yeah, talk.
I hear they laugh a lot though.
I think that's actually some sort of aggressive cry that they do that comes across as laughing. But here I am trying to ruin a children's movie, and I deeply apologize.
There's the Canadian in you coming out once more.
Of course. I don't really know what you're talking about, but yes, take my apology, please, and thank you.
Yeah, cannibalism has always fascinated me as a subject for it's the symbolism of becoming a ghoul. You're taking the energy of another being and harvesting it for your own. But once you start this path, you can never stop it. It's a perpetual thing. You'll be eaten from the inside. So Dahmer had to keep eating human flesh or else his mind would decay. It would be eaten up by the prions disease. It's for another example of what the fuck I'm talking about. That's where mad cow's disease comes from and why they linked it to Alzheimer's.
So mad cow disease is when cows eat other cows, but then that could be transferred to humans if you eat the cows that were eating other cows.
Yes. And then if that went in, and then it had neurodegenerative decline. Right.
Jeez, so should we be eating meat at all? I mean, good Lord.
Absolutely. That's what kosher meat is for.
I thought that kosher meant it was blessed by a priest.
It is proven that blessings increase the vibration of meat.
All right, well, I will make sure that I say a little prayer over the venison that I have in my freezer before I cook that sucker up and eat it again.
You know, you better put some faith in behind those words. Put your all into it. Don't just buy rote. Can't fuel it with half-hearted bullshit.
All into it. It is. I'm going to take that venison and I'm going to make it into a hot dog.
You know, that might be tasty. We were thinking about doing some chicken sausages.
Oh, chicken sausages. So chicken sausages are okay, but not chicken hot dogs. Noted.
Yeah, chicken hot dogs, what you're doing is you're putting in the casing of a balloon condom stretched over the last of a cock's meat. It's fucking nasty.
So what is a chicken sausage? What's the difference?
It's the texture. It's because it's going to be grilled. Perfection. Chicken sausage.
So how much would someone have to pay you before you actually tried human meat?
I would not. Willingly.
Willingly. Okay. There was a gentleman, and I can find this at a different time. There was a gentleman that had one of his ribs removed here in the States and asked to keep his rib, and then he cooked it up and he ate it.
See, now there's a difference between eating yourself and eating other human beings. Because if you eat yourself, you're still technically yourself. Your body recognizes who you are. It's going to be fucked up You're definitely gonna lose a few. You know, if it's not gonna. Damn. Is there any part of the body that you could just not say, this is where the darkness comes in? This is where the darkness comes in.
I'd give myself a try. Just a little bit. If it was a rib, I'd definitely do it. For sure, man.
I wonder. See, I've heard it. There was a Japanese man who ate a Norwegian woman who noted that to him, it tasted a lot like the fresh sushi that he would eat. You know, the texture, the way that it is. But I wonder if that's how he prepared it, and if there isn't a cookbook specifically for cannibals. And if Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't born in a different time, if he wouldn't be a, you know, an occult classical chef.
The Cannibal's Cookbook. Now, this man that ate this Norwegian woman, did he cook her? Is that why he said it tasted like sushi?
No,
like,
say now therein lies the questions, because I would just recommend, I've given you enough to go forth and conquer this experience. There's some mental traps that I just don't like sinking into. I brain bleach it out of my head so it doesn't stay in there forever. Pictures of cats playing and laughing, going outside, those are the reason that I can delve into the darkest points of this experience and still have a balance. You are what you consume.
How was your time around? How was your time around town?
What do you mean?
Well, you had some photos of some certain areas. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're talking about how I've been tracking Hurricane Ian and the aftermath as the different various lakes in Florida start overflowing. It's fucking awesome, man. I wanted to flood the fuck out. And then it's not because I specifically want damages, because I want to see a Venice street. I want to see the experience that Venice has where they have boats going through walkways between buildings. And I think that would be really cool to have in Florida as we continue to fucking sink. How is this a surprise to anybody?
It really shouldn't be. I mean, it's a surprise where I'm at because it's never happened before like this. I'm just been trying to figure out how to blame this on global warming.
How empathetic are you when somebody builds a trailer in a tornado valley? When that trailer's picked up and smashed?
Not sympathetic whatsoever.
I always thought the designs of... I don't know why we have big squares, all right? So, rectangles, squares, engineering, it takes so little minerals and resources, but a dome shape would just blow that wind off so much easier. And in Florida, I don't understand the point of us not having geographical, buildings that are designed for the environment. We always talk about what we can be doing to make the environment better, but one of the things that we can do is prevent loss of life and these requirements of materials to constantly sink billions and billions, having shit break over and over again by designing it not to break to begin with, using the least amount of resources. And that's not the fucking game that they want to play. They want to play the game of everything breaks and we have to remake it every few years.
Whereas I agree with your whole dome building, because that's actually really smart. After Hurricane Andrew here in Florida, they actually upped all of the building codes. So now every house that's literally anchored into the ground has to be built a certain way to essentially fight off these, Cat 5 winds that happen every few years. Now, it's not going to be the same for a mobile home because those are barely, tied down to the ground. But
I always thought that mobile homes were the pinnacle of home ownership, considering most houses are just used as disposable toasters to begin with. Isn't that where the whole real estate industry is flipping?
Well, when it comes to the real estate industry, you have these people in government and these people in these corporations that are shouting from the rooftops about global warming, global cooling, whatever the fuck is happening now, rising sea levels, yet they're still selling beachfront property for millions and millions of dollars all the time. Like, why are they even giving out loans for that if the water's going to rise?
I think that would be a fucking awesome business proposition. Future beachfront property. Don't stop global warming. Embrace it.
All right. Audio trademark. We got to figure something out with this.
That's fine. Just, instead of getting Florida, instead of getting a house in Florida, get a house in northern Florida, almost, what is it? Georgia or Alabama right above us? Failing geography live.
No, they're both there. Georgia and Alabama. Get a house on one of them. Future beachfront property. And then
I'm just saying,
in your off time, you can play Waterworld.
See, I think Waterworld was a phenomenal movie, but it would have been done better with more cannibalism. I think that's where Jeffrey Dahmer gets it right. It's really hard to tear your eyes away from the screen when you don't know if he's gonna drug and then rape the dude or just take sexy photos of him.
So we agree that there should be more cannibalism.
Absolutely. Think about it. If we want to reduce the population, the player character numbers that are going on in the world right now, if we want to reduce player characters, what better way than to encourage cannibalism? Think about it. You could have a barbecue where you take the slowest and weakest of the people who are homeless and then just feed the community.
This is a fantastic idea.
I mean, it tackles two issues at the same time. And there's also the plot of one of my favorite movies, Soylent Green. Spoiler, but at this point, just go watch the movie. So you're not...
Instead of scientists trying to work on things like... scientists are working on, different things for fruits and vegetables. Seedless watermelon was like a big thing.
Which is worse for you because it doesn't have any fertility in it. The fruit is just inert.
It's just empty and void of nutrition. What they need to do is figure out how to get the prions out of the meat, making it easier for cannibalism to happen. All right, scientists, y'all need to hop on that immediately.
I feel like those are some of those barriers we shouldn't do, and yet we're already doing something like that right now. They have eat your own celebrity meat, where you can choose from a list of DNA, and they grow home, like from their DNA, they grow a steak out of it that you can purchase and then eat. So you could eat a celebrity. You could eat Jeffrey Dahmer if they had his DNA strand.
Oh, buddy. I'd go Brad Pitt first.
Brad Pitt? Fuck that. I would want to do Oprah because she's juicy.
Oh, geez. Oh, it's recreating exactly like that. Okay. We're talking about juicy. Well, out of spite and juiciness, I would... Oh, my God. I just forgot her name. Oh, shit.
Yep.
Rosie O'Donnell. There we go. Rosie O'Donnell.
You know what? You could have done a lot better. And Frasier.
I don't know who that is.
The one who used to have that high-pitched laugh. That one. It had a whole television show around it. I don't remember the fucking television show, man. It's like not my jam. All I remember is the commercials that were highly irritating. I'd look over and just see that name. So it is what it is. That's my attention span. Television has always had a hard time gripping me because I'd rather play games, really.
That's probably a lot better for your brain as well.
It's like a puzzle. Just find one that makes you happy. Something that isn't World of Warcraft or League of Legends or Overwatch, which Overwatch 2 just came out. And they have 30,000. How do you have a multiplayer game, but you don't have enough fucking servers for the people that want to play? The only time you want to have a lot of servers would be the first time you launch the game. That way you can make a great impression and people think that they can play the game, and then you can fucking play the game with your friends, and you don't sit there waiting for an hour and a half to play one single match. Or you hop over into, say, the EU server or the Japanese server or the Asian server, and then suddenly you can get a match instead of sitting there for 30 minutes, but your ping's shit, so the experience is ruined. I don't know, man. Gaming nowadays seems like they think ass backwards. First, they try to sell you on whatever false characters that they're trying, you know, like, here's the tits, here's the ass, here's the big dicks, here's the muscles, buy our character, oh my god, you can draw hentai and porn of them later, you filthy degenerates.
Big dick?
Which makes me wonder, how many people have written Jeffrey Dahmer love stories?
Oh, what do they call that? They fan fiction? Oh,
yeah.
I'm sure there's tons of them.
Fan fiction. Dahmer ate me, but left me alive.
Jeffrey Dahmer fan fiction. Let us see. Nope. Oh.
That's not the kind of ooh that I was expecting, but it's the one I'm going to take.
Well, I found something. I don't have time to like scoot through this and... Yep.
Dahmer discovered in his
People have
puberty that he
written
was
stories
gay,
about
which is
him.
about the period he started drinking heavily. He did everything to hide it from his parents and classmates, though. He started fantasizing about raping a jogger. See, now that's the thing. He automatically... Raping. Not intimacy. Not actual fucking interaction. It's all power for him. So
Intimacy can be overrated, though.
Say again?
I said intimacy can be overrated.
I mean, the fantasy version of getting pinned and fucked by a stranger has its appeal, right? I mean, read women's romance novels and find out most of the villains are devil-may-cares who take what they want and don't ask for any fucking excuses about it. But I'm talking about this guy, this character, Jeffrey Dahmer, who's being touted around, doesn't even extend the branch of, hey, I like you, do you like me? And then rolling with the punches. He never rolls with the punches, he internalizes and explodes. So his mind's case, the character that he's playing is always a reactionary. He's never proactive. That means Jeffrey Dahmer's more a hero than a villain.
And do you believe that that's how he's being portrayed in these shows, as a hero?
Yes.
Ouch. See, I don't know. I know women are getting online talking about how, oh my gosh, he's so hot. I'd bang him. These are the same psychopaths that are probably banging their dogs, too.
Well, flip side of that, look how many, what is it? Charles Manson, Ted Kaczynski, serial killers tend to get a lot of love mail. Which is interesting, because reasonable intellects or philosophers like Jordan Peterson get a lot of hate mail. So the smarter you act, the more people fucking hate you. But the more cruel you are, the more you're loved. I think it's just bad daddy syndrome, you know? Everybody wants to appease a bad dad so they're not the ones who get smacked next. It's fucking sad.
Wow. That's good insight. I like that. That's very, very interesting when you said about Jordan Peterson.
Well,
Getting all that hate mail. My God.
He did. What does he do? His crime was to say, and this is just summarizing my perspective on him. It's not like I consumed every single piece of content that was ever produced, right? Is that he was a guy who boiled down, said, clean up your room and clean up your act. And then shat talked every other subject that came up to him. Right?
That came up to him. He was asked those questions. He didn't just go on his soapbox and start preaching. He was asked these questions.
Well, going on the soapbox and preaching is what brands do. That's how you get brand management. It's how you, if you repeat what's popular at the time, that's how you get the attention, that it gives you the fuel that perpetuates. It's how they've figured out to hack the system to gain profit, but they're willing to say anything no matter what it is. And we've noticed even recently, you can say we have almost this concept of whiplash. The subject, what we're hyper focusing on, changes because it's whatever we're being repeated in every single bit of our lives. It's like a drowning out drumming sound effect in the background. Instead of church bells, we have programs that are telling us about whatever drug is popular and how the side effects are negligible, and we should totally talk to our doctors about it. But on the flip side, it's also whatever grievance campaign is on the top here. Well, what was it? It's going to be Ukraine in the future, but it was Ukraine in the past. It was abortion before that. Now, imagine that Dahmer was working in an abortion clinic and learned that he liked to eat babies. Would he be more hated?
Christ, I really depends on with who. I mean, if he was performing the abortions and eating the babies, I don't think he'd be hated. At least by not, the people that don't see abortion as human sacrifice.
Well, what we're talking about is, would he be more hated? Because at that point, he's just, is he producing a service? See, the thing about it, the thing that I have no respect for about, especially in these serial killer mentals, is that they do it for free. They do it because it's an impulse, a drive to play a character, to have that power. That power is the thing that consumes them. That imagery, that moment where they feel alive, is the same adrenaline rush that soldiers get when they're in the middle of combat, and then when they don't have that stimulation later on and they feel that life is dull and listless. It's all about the perspective, right? As a human being in our body cars, we have extremes, and these extremes can consume us. What I'm saying is, mentally, at what point of an extreme is Jeffrey Dahmer going from just a sweetheart cannibal killer, somebody that's being packaged as an image to be pushed into people's heads, to not trust your neighbors, into a valuable community service where he's a lesson? These are the things you don't want to do. Don't push somebody who's on the back end. Notice that their support network might be shit. Where's the personal responsibility for Dahmer? He doesn't have any. He even said the system seemed to support him, and every single police officer that met him seemed to fucking love this nerd. So he had the frequency to have been profitable for society, but he was in the wrong role. Now, did society fuck up and lose what could have been a valuable resource by making him a killer? For example, put him in Guantanamo Bay. Suddenly he's interrogating people that the government wants to interrogate, right? That's a perfect role for him, isn't it? Or is he a loose cannon? It's perspective.
It would definitely be a loose cannon. I think if you're going to murder somebody, no amount of rehabilitation is going to stop you from, same with pedophiles, man. I mean,
so you're saying that every murderer, every killer of another human being will always have that impulse?
I think if it's like serial killers or just murderers that do it out of passion, it's different when you're like fighting in a war. Because
okay, but then isn't the passion of a killer something that could be a motivation for someone to get into a position where they wield that power, like SEALs?
I think it's different because at least when you're a SEAL, someone's shooting back at you, whereas these people go for the weak.
So you're saying that it's the choice of victim that matters and the tools of engagement.
Yes. It's their own they're in their own heads, they're in their own minds. They're killing out of selfishness, not out of duty. And I don't think they can be rehabilitated. Just like I don't think pedophiles can be rehabilitated. I mean, can you imagine, like, I come over to your place and you're hanging out with some guy and you're like, "Oh, this is my friend Kevin, you know. He used to fuck kids.
Whoa.
Now he's all right."
Whoa. First off, Kevin has never been convicted of a crime. And second off, the local politicians love him because he has strange connections with clubs.
Yeah. Oh, I forget he did. Or, I mean, would it be the same? Would you feel the same way if you came over to my place and Kevin was here and I was like, "Yeah, this is Kevin. He just he used to kill people for fun, murder them and eat them, but now he's cool." Would you still trust him? Would you want to hang out?
So what you're telling me is that Kevin used to be in the Vietnam War and he ran out of rations at some point.
All right. I guess we're doing a little bit of a deep dive. I didn't factor that in.
You gotta figure it's all how you package the characters, okay? You're living your life still, but if you're in charge of your impulse, if you're living in the moment, you are the character you are playing. That's what makes you a player character, and not someone who's just ruled by their impulses. Dahmer was ruled by his impulses. He wasn't a character. He was just a fucking a boss, a mini boss. Something for someone to conquer, a demon that infested, a skinwalker, someone who pretended to be human, but only through the motions of whatever would give him the least amount of attention from those who could stop him from indulging in his power.
Do you think studying his ways could perhaps bring, psychologists to be able to determine if people have these instincts at a young age?
I think the impulse of raw animalistic fury rests in every human being. And it's just every single one of us is an animal who plays the game of civilization. We're all riding around, smiling, putting on a mask, using...
We've only been civil for 100 years.
We've been civil for longer than that, but it was the threat of ultimate violence of the paired world wars, as well as the interconnectivity of the internet, has kind of really ramped up this interconnected world where we're all in each other's fucking business at all times. It's why news companies are dying if they're, newspapers can't compete with the always online, always connective, always telling your exact location being hacked by the NSA, or your computer chips and your phone are linked with a because they were printed in China. They have a back door that you're not even aware of that they can hardwire and get your data, or they sign up for TikTok and you also get all that information, you give it to China. So we have these competing spiders that are all crawling on the network of the internet like a web, and they're hunting each other down while controlling what threads are focused on. Even this imagery of a serial killer who ate and fucked is just a new way to focus on like what they want you to focus on, right? That's what the system wants you to focus on. They want you to hate thy neighbor. They want you to mistrust each other. I mean, this is us coming out of 2 years of being locked in and isolated. And who knows what the fucking psychological impact of being essentially a society of prison. A prison just popping out and all the inmates are free. They're wildin'. They're free and they're scared because they're not quite sure what the limits and norms are anymore. We've been beating different drums, and if you get caught in this network, your mind is molded and twisted into a compliant obedient robot, just an entity, something to regurgitate.
It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that before COVID, we had all these television shows, world's most dangerous prisons, life, in lockup, life in solitary confinement. And they're literally showing you that solitary confinement is one of the worst things you can do to somebody. For years and years and years, it's being blasted all over television. And then Big Daddy Government comes up and says, you know what? We need you to go ahead and voluntarily isolate yourselves for, it's only going to be for a few weeks until we flatten the curve. What was it? 15 days will flatten the curve. Now you need to self-isolate for a year. Now 2 years. Wear this, do that, get this injected.
Well, have you heard about
people are voluntarily doing that? Then you come out. You come out of this whole self-isolation in this daze just to get blasted in the face with documentary after documentary of, well, look, these people that, murder folks and eat people, they're your neighbors. They're all around you.
Right.
So now you're coming out to this new world.
Yeah. That's
right?
what I'm saying.
So
like, notice none of this was happening while we were alone. This wasn't the message that the system wanted to produce. This wasn't the drum that was being beaten or the news shouted on the corners by a paper boy. It was mostly copacetic, at home, do it yourself, gig work combined with being a new cook, the Selena Gomez cooking show, which I was watching, or building your own personal skills, or whatever crazy new show they could come out with, while quietly they were removing Cops, they were removing Live PD, you know what I'm saying? They were removing those shows off of the network. And even because I remember, what was the biggest court case of your childhood that you remember? Your earliest, biggest court case?
Oh, geez. I didn't watch TV for the longest time as a young adult. I really didn't keep up with that. I would probably say, I know this is more recent, but Casey Anthony is one that I can remember.
It was, and this is like the earliest. It was Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky for me. That was the first outrage shock porn that I remember.
The only thing I remember from that is my entire family, minus the immediates, are all super Democrats. And they like to talk shit about Republican candidates all day until it was Bill Clinton getting his dick sucked. And then it was totally fine. Totally fine. Hey, man has to get taken care of. Everybody makes mistakes. And then it was those same family members that were all up in arms.
Well, it's brigading. It's a purity spiral. It's a purity spiral. It's rules for thee and not for me. If I get caught, I'm just the again, remember, blame the victim because it's Monica Lewinsky's fault, right? She was the willing participant. And who was the victim there? I think Bill Clinton was the victim, honestly. A ruler of the world, getting a beej, not a big deal. Calm the fuck down.
It's not a big deal considering who his wife is. And then I'd be trolling for beej all day long.
I mean,
because I don't want you to be going down on me.
Transactional relationships. Yeah, transactional relationships inevitably just consume you. I think for Bill, at least as an outside observer, that his relationship with Hillary was transactional to gain power when he needed it, when he was a senator, to reach his goals. But then it became less of, once he accomplished his goals, it just became constant, unending support for his wife, where he was put on the back stream, and the only time he ever popped up is whoever he was fucking. Really? I mean, the story is sad. The character is just, at that point, predictable.
Wouldn't all relationships kind of be, what was the word you used?
Transactional.
Transactional. Wouldn't all relationships be somewhat transactional? I mean, if you stop doing the things that made your lady happy.
But see, what we're talking about here is not, we're talking about acts of service. Like, acts of service is not transactional. That's voluntary, right?
Okay.
When I'm talking about
Gotcha.
transactional,
All
is
right.
tit for tat. I'm saying it's like a vending machine. You have to put in this for this. I mean, to give you an example, do you watch 90 Day Fiancé?
No, I have balls.
Well, they must be tiny and shriveled like your brain, because 90 Day Fiancé is phenomenal. It's human interaction
God.
and
You're
interpersonal relationships. But one of the best parts about it is how they break down, and there's there's two of them. Yogi! Belial and who? Who's his woman's name? Belial and Shahida. So Belial and Shahida have a transactional relationship, and it's on display if you watch the latest 90 Day Fiancé, where he took her from her, I believe it was Trinidad, into his home country of America, and they married each other. But one of her conditions was that he wanted her to sign a prenup, and she wanted to have children before she was 40. So they made an agreement, a written agreement, a transaction that's a stipulation for her. And that's her entire focus of the relationship now, is to get pregnant and have that kid. But doing so means that she's focused on that goal rather than living in the moment. So it's become purely transactional, and because of that, kind of a chain around them.
Are they both aware of this at least, or is this just something you're noticing?
I believe that they're aware that they have made their compromises for the relationship, but I don't believe that they know that they've made it into a transactional relationship. I think that's how Belial knows how to relate to people, because he's a businessman first. And so even his interpersonal relationships are a business, where this is what I'm giving and this is what I'm getting.
Well, maybe I'll look up some clips on YouTube.
I'd say go for it, because once you get into Angela's lifestyle with Michael, you'll be hooked. Especially if you've ever watched.
Oh my God. I've never been so soft in my life. I think you need to take that man card out of your wallet and slap it proudly down on the desk. Have Yogi bum rush in the room and snag that shit up.
Well, look who's reinforcing society's gender norms. I thought you were better than that.
That's me. I'm raising my hand. That's me. I'm reinforcing those societal norms with 90 Day Fiancé.
Beautiful, because you just actually countered one of the 5 master suppression techniques.
What is that? Master suppressor.
Master suppression techniques is what I try to use was ridicule, in a manipulative way to portray the arguments or their opponents themselves in a ridiculing fashion. So I was trying to make light of it's a common technique that the as you say, the fucking Democrats like using. But that's the thing. Politics is that they're all trying a popularity contest. I fucking hate the popularity contest. It's a waste of time. It's not solving the problem. It's getting enough votes so that you can get into the office so you can make the money. It's become a business of middle management.
Oh, for
sure.
But
yeah, even that, you countered it by just doubling down. Not having an emotional reaction to it is a counter. Fucking beautiful. Now, imagine if Jeffrey Dahmer read the 48 Laws of Power, or some philosophy of Plato, or Marcus Aurelius's Stoicism. He might have had a better life with an education. That's what I'm saying. Was Jeffrey Dahmer a tool that was just not handled properly? A human being that could have offered something for humanity. Humanity has a thirst for power and violence, right? I mean, it wouldn't be a popular fucking show on Netflix if there wasn't some hunger for the voyeurism of seeing what humanity's depths are.
We are pretty much obsessed with death. People in general.
Well, we've become a death cult with just our hyper focus of it in the past few years. I mean, the Georgia Guidestones blowing up. Anybody? Huh?
Whereas I do recall that. I mean, we've pretty much been obsessed with death since the beginning of time.
I think that death cults and focusing on death and rebirth are a way of keeping yourself low vibration. If you're always concerned with survival, you're not thinking about how to prosper. You're not thinking about profits. You're just thinking about living. And surviving is at your lowest core, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
You just got to update your system, man. Got to change that frequency. Jeffrey Dahmer, if he took the capability of just taking rejection and turning it into not investing his energy trying to appease people that didn't like him, if he learned how to fail and then was encouraged to move on or to speak up for himself, I don't feel like he'd be that giant popping chemical bubble balloon that he became. He wouldn't have fucking did it. I feel like he would have been fine if he just learned how to express himself, if he could have taken the rejection. But maybe also at the time he could have done, when he was younger, the actual therapy. Maybe not having a hernia surgery would have helped, you know, tearing his midriff. That's a lot of pain for a young mind to take.
Can we also equate this to school shooters? What could be done for them?
School shooters,
Almost.
I feel like it's a combination of the victim being punished. Because, I mean, think about it nowadays. If you get a fight in school, what happens? You and the person you're fighting get suspended.
Even if they started, yes.
So, you know, like, you start a fight, you get punished. But you're a victim of fight, you get punished. You take that mentality and you realize that being the aggressor gets you rewarded because you're still going to be punished anyway. It's just a mindset, right? There's no release for them. They don't find something that they want to do. They don't find a hobby to pressure release. Sports is great for that. Going outside or just learning that you don't have to be around the people. You can just say, fuck off. And I think that it's this endless, wheedling, whining, sycophant obsession with being liked and loved and branded and saying the right words to be accepted has become a rot that allows them to manipulate us by the predictive programming they put on television, radio, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Doesn't matter the medium. They're putting it out there over and over again as a hypnotic repetition to keep you indoctrinated. And this is so insidious that unless you unplug and just fully focus on something that, like reading and not listening to the news or radio. Have you ever just not looked at the news for a month?
No, I really can't do that considering we talk about a lot of news.
Well, say that we started talking about profits and how we became profitable and more abundant in our life, how we found success through our skills.
Probably have a lot better mental health. You know, that reminds me of there's a Netflix show called Black Mirror. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it essentially tackles, every episode is different. It's kind of like a modern day Twilight Zone where they tackle different things that are literally happening in real time. So
philosophy.
Let's say in one episode, everyone is connected to social media. So anytime you make a purchase, the person that you're buying your Starbucks coffee can rate you through the app. And having a certain amount of likes or stars what allows you to, like a social credit score, to get on the bus, to drive a car, to buy cups of coffee. And that's just one episode, but they all tackle these wild things that are literally just a few years away from being a reality. And people watch it and they go, oh, that's cool. And then they go right back into, gossip about Stacy or complaining that, they pay too much for it, and nobody gives a shit. They don't see the writing on the wall that this show is literally telling you what's going to happen.
Well, it's predictive programming. Like we were saying, the Chinese social credit score that's currently being used to prevent people from traveling to withdraw money from the banks is an example of that, but in like a media form for American culture and American, English speaking people to consume. It's predictive programming because they want that response later. Blind compliance. The more compliant you are and the more you expose your asshole to the system, the more they love you and the more they're going to fuck you. Anybody who's worked for the military or for the government knows that the government doesn't fucking love you. It just wants to use you. At this point, I think 232 million people have died in the past 20 years from government actions?
Oh, it's absolutely insane.
And yet we're taught to do what? Yes, daddy government, I love you. Love me back. I'm going to say the right words, and because of that, you're going to shower me with abundance. But I believe that there's a mindset for abundance, for growth, outside of what is represented. It's how niche games become popular, like The Last of Us 2. A small company that pitches a story that you experience is able to gain a lot of notoriety because it's pitching a different thing besides Modern Warfare or another Call of Duty shooter.
Heck yeah.
But we wouldn't know this. It's like how... It's how new ideas are grown. Or lately, and I gotta say, one of the reasons that I fight the latest mentality of blind obedience is that it's become this seductive cult, this television cult, where people are glued to the screen to repeat the words to gain attraction and attention. Knowing, for example, Brad Pitt's name and knowing that he was in Mission Impossible as one of his movies, or that he was part of Top Gun, is the street cred and the modern day lore, where the same way we would be teaching about the god of Zeus and how he used to use a lightning bolt as his primary attack, and he would shapeshift into various forms. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the same shit.
Brad Pitt wasn't in either of those movies.
No, it's Tom Cruise, the superior Brad Pitt.
That's what I was like. That doesn't sound familiar at all, but I get what you're going at. You had at least the movies were, like in order. Yeah, absolutely.
Dahmer is
Cruise,
just
that crazy Scientologist fuck.
Oh, I love, but you know what? That's what I'm saying. These become the gods. Dahmer has become this TV cannibal sweetheart killer, but he could be your neighbor because he's the new god of cannibalism. He's the new thing to talk about with your friends. But then also in the back of your head, it might be possible that the quiet one in your circle is about 2 seconds away from snapping if you don't listen to their peg collection.
Maybe this is just a way to make people hyper aware of what's going on around them. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. I kind of guarantee you that before we know it, there'll be some sort of serial killer that's unmasked because someone was all paranoid about their neighbor and called. And look how good this is. That we put this
Jeffrey
out here.
Dahmer would not have been able to make it in modern day at all because of Ring cameras. No fucking way. You can't convince me that somebody wouldn't have a Ring camera in their backyard, pointed over there, being like, why is this Mayo-looking motherfucker dragging a dead body across my lawn? It's just, it's not possible. It's not feasible. It's not going to fucking happen. And that is why we have shows about it, why we've been focusing on the serial killer time. Yeah, at one point we're showing this, but we're also not showing the cop films of how we used to catch killers. So now killers are incentivized to make their name, to be the next celebrity. Because again, if they wanted to make this, a warning, right? Don't fuck with kids, like Jeffrey Dahmer did with that 14-year-old. They would have did it as a heroic story from the pacing of Tracy Edwards, right? The guy who was already accused of murder in jail. Dahmer goes in there and he rings his fucking bell permanently. The story would be Tracy Edwards learning about who Jeffrey Dahmer is through interactions and experience, but they're not showing that. What they're showing and focusing on is a man who reaches out and is rejected and has to control with a power fantasy in order to interact with the world in the way that he feels comfortable. Where his mental illness could have been a mental chillness if he was engaged in an environment that would have taken what he was and used him to the max. I think this is a school failing as well as his family failing and personal responsibility on him because he couldn't own up to what he was before he ended up snapping.
So you think this is a societal problem? You don't put any actual blame on Jeffrey himself?
No, like I said, he has personal responsibility for not owning up to who he was. To owning up to the fact that he wanted to kiss dudes. He wanted to go full bromo.
I mean, wasn't he talking about that in his interviews, though?
He did later on, but that was the reason that he gave that he started alcoholism, and he was a mean fucking drunk. And you know, there's only 3 types of drunks that you've ever met in your life. There's the mean one, the laughing one, and the napper.
And are you the former?
No, I go laughing to napping real quick.
Okay, that's good to know.
Except tequila, which I believe is the dick drink. Dick juice. Find out how terrible you are as a person. Drink tequila.
That should be a prerequisite for any time you meet a new friend. Come on over, we'll drink tequila, see what happens.
Ugh. You're reminding me of terrible decisions in which I decided to find out how many Jaeger bombs I could have in one day. The answer is 5.
That's it?
Well, I had monkey brain shots and jungle juice on top of that, so I wasn't really racing for how many Jaeger bombs I could pop in succession. That shit tasted nasty unless you cut it with Mountain Dew to begin with.
No, you got to use that Red Bull, buddy. Got to use that Red Bull all the way.
I wanted to feel my heart not bounce out of my chest.
That's what I'm saying. When you're having that heart attack, at least it'll be nice and tank.
Bro, that's a level of drunk that I would only... You know what? That's a level of drunk that NyQuil provides. Classic.
I haven't been hammered like that in many a year.
As I was saying, though, Dahmer, the reason that Dahmer is interesting to me is that there's no... The system encouraged him, but the people hated him. And it's interesting to see it unfold, right? Because at that time, the victims were blamed, right? The people who were calling out and reaching out for help were cast in a negative light, but he as the bad guy had the best public relations. And it's interesting because when this is inverse, when somebody's an actual victim of a horrible situation, they end up getting fucking roasted on the coals. I mean, you said it earlier after what was one of the largest things I believe you mentioned. We mentioned the Milwaukee guy, but before that was Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse was roasted, roasty toasty, nuts on the fire.
Yeah, literally for defending himself.
Every single legal precedent was thrown at him to make an example that you cannot use any method to prevent your own pain. You must be in pain and cry out for help. That is your only solution. And what happens when you cry out for help and you're ignored?
Horrible lesson.
Oh, it's a horrible lesson. It's a lesson that we're showing the results of in Chicago, in New York, where the villains are not being punished, they're being released. You've got rolling bands of criminals who are straight up jacking people, hopping out of cars and just, you know, taking their shit and then rolling them. After they obediently get down and do everything they say, they don't get to live.
That's such a crying shame. I'm so happy I don't live there.
It's interesting to me that how much it feels like sardines in a can cities are nowadays. And it's going to get worse when we run out of the strategic petrol reserve in America after rolling it for the past few months to drive down the gas prices. And then the Saudi princes don't want us to buy any fuel, so we'll end up having to tap our own. We're going to see $10 gas.
That'll be a meltdown here in the United States.
I mean, we're already having high shipping costs for everything. And this was, I remember a time where shelves were always stock full of everything I've ever wanted, neat in a row in every supermarket. And that changed in my life.
I remember the great toilet paper famine of 2020.
Toilet paper famine. Were you a hoarder of toilet paper, or did you just invest in a bidet as soon as you could?
No, I didn't have either one. I'm not going to get into my shitting habits, but it was like odd.
You're not going to get into your shitting habits? Is that only an indulgement that you'll give me offline? Do I get to hear about how you stretch your hole? But only when we're not recording? Because I got to tell you, I'm disappointed.
Depending on the consistency, I will either wipe or I'll jump in the shower. There you go. If I'm going to jump in the shower, then it looks really weird. I'm glad no one has a camera in there because I'm all like pressed up against the wall with my ass out, you know, spreading cheeks.
I got to be honest with you, man. I did a complete blowout with Mexican yesterday, and it feels like there's a ring of fire. It's not as bad as Chipotle,
what kind of sauce
though.
were you using? Yeah, man. No, if I eat Taco Bell, I will literally shit out whole pieces of lettuce within 30 minutes. It's that bad. I can't eat Taco Bell.
The tunnel of love.
I mean, if I swung a certain way to where having a clean tunnel of love was a thing,
if Jeffrey Dahmer was in the Taliban, he would have been popular.
Oh, he would have been the most appreciated Taliban member, but he wouldn't want those 72 virgins.
Well, they never specified what kind of virgins. It could have been goats.
Touche, sir. They never specified. Oh shit. God damn. Oh man. All this Dahmer talk is making me hungry.
Girls don't poop. That is 100% shit, Kelly. Ain't no way you're gonna convince me that girls don't poop.
No,
and if they
I
don't,
absolutely 100% believe it.
Oh, you believe that?
Absolutely, I do.
They do
not.
His mother died of cancer in the year 2000. You wonder if he danced on his grave? I mean, after see, it doesn't say. It does not say what type of cancer on this little aggregated list that I wrote down. I just wrote down cancer.
Wait,
which, interestingly enough,
are you telling me that Jeffrey Dahmer had cancer?
His mom did.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't really give a shit about her.
Well, she didn't give a shit about him to begin with. Should he?
He didn't give a shit about his victims. Neither did his dad. There's just a bunch of people not giving a shit about each other.
Well, welcome to really what you boiled down to. It's The game of masks is as easy as smiling and clapping and not caring. And as long as we're smiling and clapping, we're rewarded by balloons and cake. But don't you fucking frown. You
I'm
frown.
really happy I don't.
Oof. That's why I can't understand why fat people are so fucking sad nowadays. They have all this food that's delicious, but all the times that I'm looking at these shows, like, they're just angry fat people.
Not only do they have all this delicious food, but they also have an entire movement behind them telling them that them being overweight and unhealthy is a good thing and that men should love them regardless.
No,
but if you're a man and you're overweight, motherfucker, hit the gym.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the difference between men and women's perception on it. I'm talking about the ease of how we can eat food. And yet, every time I'm looking at Honey Boo Boo or what's the new one, My Big Fat Beautiful Life, it's always drama and fucking sadness. Well, you're happy. You're eating.
Are you? I'm really hoping you messed up that My Big Fat Beautiful Life. Is this a real thing?
It's a real thing. Yes. It's some fat Jersey-looking woman, probably Italian, or Greek.
My Big Fat Fabulous Life. Oh
close
my
enough.
God.
Close enough. Close enough.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? But remember, this is because if you ever look at an 80s movie compared to a 2000s movie, you can see the waist size is doubling every year.
I've never heard of this, and there are 9 seasons.
Yeah,
from TLC, the Learning Channel. TLC can go fuck itself. What is this? 98 episodes. There's a list of. This is blowing my mind right now, dude. I didn't know this existed. Holy shit. Whitney Way Thor. Yeah, she's built like Thor, minus the muscles. Good Lord. Holy crap. This is a real thing. This is a real thing. You are blowing my mind. They're coming out with a new season in 2022. Holy fat girl dancing. That's now. I'm going to have to watch this now. I'm going to have to melt my mind with mindless television of fat people celebrating how they're going to get heart disease. Oh my gosh, dude.
You're welcome. I really know that every single time I can give you another layer of debauchery and degeneracy that you can delve into.
This is absolutely, this is fucking crazy. My Big Fat Fabulous Life. No shit. Hosted by the Learning Channel. I wonder what other kind of crap TLC has on there. I'm going to look up what they got, some of their content.
Let's see, it's wild because when we're talking about this, Netflix, right? Netflix has been rotating out outrage bait for a few years now. Remember when Cuties popped up?
Oh yeah. I fast forwarded to the part that everyone was talking about, and then I kept thinking the SWAT team was going to bust in my windows. It was pretty heavy, man.
You say that in a world in which, what is it called? Stripper time with kids is a thing that happens.
This is true.
Again,
this is true.
This is what is popular is outrage bait. The more the system can have you either afraid or angry and focusing on it is how they can keep you on that pattern. It's why when we were talking about music, when the frequency of music and the tuning of it is an ancient Chinese proverb that the frequency of the music dictates the quality of the civilization. We're impacted more by what we are and what we consume than we're honestly prone to admit. We like to think of ourselves as beings that have control over our bodies, our meat puppets at any time. But how seductive, for example, for you, how seductive is it to see a Democrat go in and lie to your face on the news, while like the Martha's Vineyard situation, where yes, we accept and will support anybody who comes here, but then they'll hire the army to escort them off their fucking property, right? It's that's outrage bait for you. That's
yes.
Yeah, but that's your what your bait to lower yourself. She's been trying years but can't lose the weight, and it's a condition. Let me tell you, as a formerly recovered fat man who loved to eat whole ass pizzas, donuts, cheesesteaks, cheeseburgers, honestly, anything that you possibly do. I was 350 pounds and I've gone all the way down to 180 at the fittest time of my life. I'm in a comfortable 190 and I love it. But it's bullshit. It's all mental strength.
Mind blowing. How I couldn't believe when I saw that fat photo of you. It literally blew my mind. It didn't even look like you at all.
Oh, I told you that one of the fattest times I was when I was in college, I was going to be part of Beauty and the Geek season 4.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to be the guy that they chose. And the only fucking reason that I didn't do it is because they wanted my social security number. And I was like, this feels like a scam. And then I would later find out that every fucking company needs your full social for some fucking reason. So, yeah, I would have been on Beauty and the Geek when I was in college.
TV famous. Yeah, well, that would have probably, they would have, you know, if they liked your personality, they definitely would have done follow-ups, and then they'd find you all nice and
no, they would have loved me because I was an unrepentant dick.
Yeah, plus it would have made hanging out with you a little bit cooler, you know? Like, oh yeah, this is my buddy.
Because this is what would have happened. I would have worked out. I would have gotten into shape, and then I would have looked at the girl and been like, you know, you got some real fat thighs. You should think about doing some squats.
You know, I'm sorry. I'm just like dipping into chat, and I see that, you know, Miss Kelly's talking about farting rainbows, and that probably makes my obsession with rainbows a little bit more clear.
I think rainbows are cool because they have all the primary colors. They're bright.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I agree, but you also don't eat ass, and that's what I was getting at. So,
yeah, I have disdain for the amount of plebbery that I just heard from you, peasant.
No. I mean, I get all excited when we get on this topic. I just want to tell you about all my exploits, but never mind.
I know but for you, it's never tongue in cheek. It's always straight and serious.
Yeah, it has to be serious. It's a very serious subject, buddy.
Did Jeffrey Dahmer ever eat somebody's butthole as a sandwich?
I guarantee you he did. Guaranteed. I'm not even gonna have to look it up. I'm sure there's not like a food list of the parts that he used as as part of his sandwiches, but I guarantee you he did, because he was probably in that aspect a man of class.
I mean, really, he was the thing that was fascinating about his obsession with cannibalism is that he always kept a supply, but he never used a freezer. You know, you're talking about your venison, but I know you deep freeze your meat. Any hunter that hunts, you know, so you don't have to keep hunting, you just hunt once, is you deep freeze the meat, then you unthaw it. Wouldn't have that solid?
Yeah, but he was living like that for a while. It's almost like, you know, when you go into like a hoarder house and it smells like absolute garbage in there, but the hoarders can't smell it because they're accustomed to it. They're used to it. He was not smelling those dead bodies.
Okay, the worst smell you've ever walked into, and I'll start. I had, when I was doing handyman services, there was this really old lady who loved, because she didn't really go out and she didn't have anything that she did with other people, she loved to collect pets. So she had like 2 birds in every single room in her house, a horde of cats, and 1 or 2 dogs that were walking around. The smell was baked into my brain of every single just blending of coffee beans that you could imagine. To this day, I can't look at a bird and not think of just that smell. I don't understand bird people. They're the fucking worst. They're the most degenerate, disconnected souls I've ever met in this life.
That's a lot of Puerto Ricans that are bird. I'm definitely not a bird person myself. Worst smell, I would say, is when my neighbor killed himself, and then nobody found the body for like 5 to 7 days. And when they opened that door, it just wafted out. Oof.
Couldn't even have the courtesy of taking a shower.
Nope, definitely not. He had the courtesy to stack all of his belongings neatly like he was moving out by his front door, but then blew his brains out on the carpet instead of the tile in the kitchen. So they had to replace all that. But yeah, I've smelled dead animals before. I've lived in the country my entire life, and human smells different. It really does.
It does. There's a tang to it, a sense of wrongness that goes to our core.
Yeah,
it really,
like you just know. Even if you can't see it, you don't know if it's an actual human or an animal. You can smell the difference.
Or a tropical fish had died if you're Jeffrey Dahmer and you want to bullshit your way out of the cops investigating why your apartment smells like death. Damn, I cannot believe he got away with that. It's a wild time.
I'm going based off what I saw in the show, but like, oh, my family gave me a bunch of pork and it went bad. My tropical fish died. Like, come on, buddy. You could think of something better than that, but they believed him. What the hell?
No, I don't believe there was belief. I think it was just blind passivity. You know, how much paperwork do you really want to do? Me? I don't want to do that much. I don't want to let it be somebody else's problem, right?
All right. What are your plans for the rest of the day?
Well, my next plan is to stand outside and just bask in this autumn air. There's something about getting through the winter in Florida that's just really appealing.
No, I'm so excited that the temperature finally dropped.
I mean, you say that at the same time where you're also waddling from point A to point B. Maybe it's time for you to invest in an airboat? I
would rather invest in a larger vehicle than an airboat. Airboats, I mean, at least 20 grand.
You could get a hovercraft.
It's all getting fixed. It's all getting fixed too. Well, that's what I was cruising around in yesterday, was the 6-wheeled, and no, it was 8 wheels. 8 wheels, like amphibious vehicle. That was in that video that I showed you. We were hauling ass. And then when you watch it, you'll hear the engine cut and me say, oh, we're floating now. And that's when it got too deep for the wheels to grab. But my luck, which I'm making myself, is changing tomorrow. And I will have a vehicle posted on the road past the flooded waters that I will be able to access mostly whenever I want. So there we go.
You're changing your fate by embracing a different path. That's what you're supposed to do as a character, right? You can only cast the bones out in the direction that you want. The thing about a bad situation is it's how you think about it, but also how you experience it. If you're constantly weighing how negative it is on your mind, you're not going to go to a better place. You're going to be stuck in it. It's going to repeat itself over and over again. That's the feeling you're giving and the feeling you're getting. We're rational beings who live irrationally with our emotions, and we let our emotions be pulled in any direction by these pitiful sorcerers who cast illusion spells around us. These fucking television shows of depression and mistrust and fear. If you consume it, that's what you are, because you are what you eat. And we're just eating it constantly. That's why I recommend a steady diet of Gods and Prophets podcast, brought to you by me. Telling truth.
And Mark Santana.
And this has been episode 50.